Hi there. Welcome to Awakening with Sally Love. And this is my very first episode in this podcast. I meant to start this project, I'm going to call it, in December, but I got way sidetracked by something that happened in my personal life. But here I am. Oh, just a few months later. And it's funny because I've started many different usually video projects in the month of May throughout the years. But here I am with Awakening is the name of this. And I am Sally Love. And this first episode is going to hopefully talk a little bit about all the uncertainty in the world and what we can do. The title of this is Calm Within the Storm. This is a space where we can learn to feel safe in our bodies again, where we soften fear, regulate our nervous system, and reconnect to the wisdom within us. Before we begin, please place one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Take a slow breath in and exhale out. You are here. You are safe in this moment, and your body is listening. So, the main things I wanted to talk about in this episode is that in an uncertain world like it we're living in right now, anxiety is not a weakness. I know there's a lot of, different, my daughter is in middle school. And if you haven't been following me, her name is Madison. But tons of young people these days are diagnosed with anxiety disorders and are placed on medication. Heck, I know a lot of adults that are also on anti-anxiety medication. But what I want to say is that feeling unsafe in such uncertain times is normal. Your body is not betraying you. If you are watching the news and listening to all of the things that people are saying in the news about what's going on in the world, of course you're going to be stressed because anxiety in the body feels like stress. Many people are overthinking, super active monkey mind. Well, yeah, you know, many people are having a tough time right now. So, it's pretty normal for the nervous system to constantly scan for danger. That is what it's supposed to do. Ready at any moment to shift the blood supply, right? That's the leftovers of the, in more, even more trying times, if you can imagine it, right? When all of a sudden you have a bear walking up to you and you got to do something, right? But now, although there are bears here near me in Washington State, you never know when you go out on a hike, or even in people's backyards. But anyway, many people in the world are living in survival mode and they don't even realize it. And that's why I decided to call this awakening, because this has been my awakening. And the reason I wanted to start out with this topic is because I was living in survival mode for decades. and I had no idea. Trauma. I was in an abusive relationship, and I want to share with you how I have learned to regulate my nervous system and to actually make changes in my life for my peace, my calm, my passion, my spiritual growth, and my awakening. So, panic. Panic comes from accumulated stress, overwhelm, unresolved fear, trauma, uncertainty, overstimulation, or emotional suppression. And, it's interesting. Over the years, I have had what I would call panic attacks. Um, and a lot of people feel like they're on the verge of losing it. So the body can become addicted to alertness and hypervigilance, especially those of us that have lived through traumatic experiences, especially abusive relationships. The walking on eggshells thing is real, and it is our nervous system that pays the price. So, in order to kind of explain this a little bit, I'm going to talk about some very different things. So, this is a spiritual podcast, but in order to talk about the nervous system, I kind of need to talk about the ways in which we react to traumatic situations. Because, and you've heard this before, I'm sure, but it's the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And the interesting, a lot of people are very familiar with the fight or flight, right? That was very popular. I think it was talked about a lot in the late 80s, early 90s, right? You tend to either have this desire to fight when you are confronted with a situation, retaliating against a threat. You might know people that are aggressive when things get, uh, under pressure, out of a need to control, maybe. Then there's flight. Those people that tend to avoid the danger, like running away. Severe anxiety is actually a symptom of flight mode. Restlessness and even constantly changing jobs or relationships to avoid getting trapped is a symptom of this flight trauma response. It's not just being, staying by yourself. If you've been in a lot of abusive relationships, women tend to not want to be in a relationship for a while. Some just continue the loop. Others get out entirely and are single the rest of their lives. That might be a symptom of that, perhaps. But the ones that, the freeze, going numb, or becoming completely immobile. Your body acts out a temporary pause. It can also feel like being spaced out or an inability to make decisions in the long run, longer term. It's not just this, these things are not just in one moment. And the longer that we live under this, you know, heightened stress, these trauma responses can be ongoing. And like I said, for me, it was years, at least a decade. The one that people don't really know usually too much about is the fawn response. And I learned about this, back in my last abusive relationship that ended in 2019. But attempting to appease or please the threat to prevent further conflict in order to stay safe. This usually results in people pleasing, over accommodation, and a loss of personal boundaries. These responses, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, are hardwired in to protect you. And like I said, if there is a bear that you happen upon on a hike, you're going to be glad you have these responses. And hopefully you'll just pick automatically without any idea of what really is in the moment, but you'll pick it out and you will do the right thing in that moment. Our ancestors would have these responses when facing physical predators, but they can also be triggered by modern, everyday stressors like workplace conflicts, difficult relationships, emotional trauma, physical, any kind of trauma, really. Even, witnessing an accident, anything that you can think of where you may have heard that people suffer PTSD from can cause these responses. And PTSD is not something only for military veterans, not only for victims of childhood abuse, sexual abuse. I mean, I could just list it out here. Hello. We had an Amber Alert. But what's interesting is that a lot of different things can cause these traumatic, the PTSD reactions. And what's important is that you don't judge yourself because it's happening even if you don't want it to be. So, like I said, these are unconscious. Learning to recognize your primary trigger and gently signaling safety to your nervous system is the first step toward healing. So a few things, these are common tools that people use. One is breathing exercises. Another are grounding exercises. And the last one, at least for this, is mindfulness. And in this next little bit, I'm going to be modeling a couple of these in a guided practice. So what I'd like to do now is just going to take a few minutes. But in this world where things feel uncertain, you may feel unsafe. And maybe we should start out by asking, we quiet our mind for a second, and just ask yourself, do I feel safe in the world? And if you do, great. I love that. And if you're not, or even if you are feeling safe right now, but are looking for a quick little guided practice for what to do in case you don't, you are welcome to follow along here. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to look around the room where you are slowly. This is about presence and being in the here and now. Now look and notice 5 safe or comforting things around you. And if you don't have all five, that's fine. So next, I'm going to ask you to feel your feet on the floor or the chair under your body, wherever you are, if you are lying down, all of the places that your body is being held. You are safe. Next, we're going to do a quick breath exercise. There's lots of different ways to do breathing that really help when you're not feeling safe, but this is one that relaxes your nervous system very quickly. And we're going to start with a double inhale. And what that is like is, and then we're going to hold at the top for 4 seconds. And then we're going to exhale out of our mouth for 8. And we're going to do this 3 times together. So a double exhale. Hold for 4. Exhale for 8. Double inhale. Hold for 4. Exhale for 8. Oh, and already the top of my head, I can feel it starting to relax. Now place your hand, at least one, on your heart and move all of your awareness into this heart space. As you breathe normally now, straight into your heart. And while we're doing this, you can say aloud or in your mind, I am divinely guided. I am divinely protected. I am divinely guided. I am divinely protected. I am divinely guided. I am divinely protected. And I usually do that 3 times. And I usually take a deep conscious breath in between. And I feel in for truth as I'm doing this. I am safe. And so it is. So that's just a quick little example of just throwing together a few things that really do help the nervous system calm down. Mindfulness, presence, breath work, and grounding. So yeah, that is what I wanted to cover in this to talk a little bit about how do we calm ourselves down. You know, one of the things that really helped me at the beginning of my journey really hit it hard in about 2016 for me was the breath work. And I had a friend, Christine, who was telling me about box breathing. And if you don't know what that is, it's, inhaling for four, exhale, or holding for four, then exhaling for four, holding for four, in going around in a box. And that, when I was at the height of very high heart rate and feeling very stressed out, that really helped me calm and ground myself. You can try that. You can try yoga nidra, which is I usually follow Ali Boothroyd or Kristen Rose on YouTube. Either one of those are fantastic guides, at least to give you the principles of how you can do it on your own. But it really helps ground and center our nervous system. And a lot of them are called, resetting the nervous system, reformatting the nervous system, massaging the nervous system, because this is really about merging together the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And I'm going to call it weaving them together. It's important that our body knows that we're not just going to disregard all of these physical indicators we're getting from stress. That's what causes dis-ease, right? And so we're going to do what we can. We are infinite beings living a physical existence right now, but we are meant to weave these together. So please, please take good care of you. And I will be back in the next episode to talk a little bit about panic and how you can, some more very practical ideas of what to do if you're feeling panic. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to catching you on the next one. Bye.